I'm going to invite you to kind of lean into this growth conversation. You're welcome to respond to any of those, but I'm interested to hear how you feel about what I'm sensing is a perception of a competition framework, a competition law framework that is applied in a way that is not pro-competition, but is anti-competition. That's a perception I'm getting from the other side of the room, which is a bit strange to me because I think the competition framework is designed to encourage competition. So where's the disconnect coming through here, where people are looking at you who's supposed to encourage competition, but they're saying, but you're killing competition? I mean, are they smoking something, or am I missing something? I'm not quite sure where the disconnect is.
And I'm not sure there is a disconnect.
Okay.
So if I could come, I think one has to separate the issue of the role of competition and then processes and the institutional processes and the length. So I may be wrong, but I think Busi understands, and Adrian put it really well, competition is good. And in fact, in a low-growth environment, pushing a pro-competitive environment is essential. It's one of two recommendations coming out of the World Bank, and all of Adrian's observations stand. But if you look at the thinking right now, globally, on things like industrial policy, the OECD has come out and said, pro-competitive industrial policy is what you should be pushing for. You don't pick a national champion, in fact. You try and bring as many firms into that net to get the rivalry. And the reason they've pushed that is because competition drives efficiencies, productivity growth, innovation, and that drives growth. So it's also inappropriate, in a sense, to look at the investment of one big firm. What we should be measuring, and it's research we've started on, is in sectors with lower levels of concentration, do we see collectively more investment, not just
but are you seeing that? Are you starting
we're
to
still
see the
starting
results?
to do that research, but that is what economic theory and everything would tell you. And this academic studies around sort of pro-competitive industrial policy are very strong on this, that if you can bring that rivalry in. And that's where Adrian is entirely correct, that we don't have this ecosystem of smaller challenger firms that are growing, expanding, that giving that dynamism. And if they were there, South Africa has a big deficit there, then in fact we would see more employment growth and growth and investment.
But I'm going to just push you, James, and I want to push each and every one of you now.
Yeah?
I'm not going to let you go until you give me a case study that we can hang ourselves to. So you make some really important points. Do you have one, Adrian?
I've got one, and because I didn't answer I realized I responded but didn't answer your question.
So let him, whilst he's giving us a case study, you think of a case study to make that point. Go for it, Adrian.
So I'll give you a case study. It's a business that it's a firm that I've been doing a lot of work with recently. The information, the story is in the public domain, but just in the interest of sensitivity, I'll anonymize it. A South African bank, which is opened up in 2 other jurisdictions. And in those 2 other jurisdictions, the cost of them opening the bank, the legal cost, the regulatory costs, are a quarter in those 2 other jurisdictions combined versus what it cost them in South Africa.
So just to be clear, did they open up in like a Rustenburg type of country, or is it in like a proper big country?
Very fast-growing countries. People can do the reverse engineering.
I just wanted to be clear that we were not talking about the Rustenburg effect, or...
So this bank has opened up in 2 other Southeast Asian nations, fast-growing, large populations. We're talking about 100 million population in these 2 other jurisdictions. So these are big, fast-growing markets, and for that bank to open in those 2 destinations, the legal and regulatory costs for those 2 combined was a quarter of what it cost them in South Africa.
Okay, thank you. Great case study. Back at you, James, your case study.
Well, just to take a simple one, we did a grocery inquiry, and all your major national grocery chains had exclusive leases that blocked not just each other from entering the shopping malls, but small businesses across all the product ranges that they had Once we concluded those agreements to end that, we saw far more dynamism in the market. We saw small groups expanding suddenly because they had access to consumers. And that's how competition abuse can stifle, in fact, the dynamism in the economy. But where I was going, Morris, is why I'm saying I'm not hearing that there's a concern with pursuing competition. I'm hearing there's a concern around the processes. And it's important to separate, because too often they're intertwined. We must throw out, the baby with the bathwater. Competition authority is slow on mergers, therefore we must do this. And I think that's the wrong discussion and the wrong debate. Because, oddly enough, and just another example, most of the companies that lay complaints with us are businesses that are facing abuse from other businesses. Most of those who would applaud our work are ones who've, in fact, been threatened by anti-competitive mergers and are saved from that in the process. And that's why business is a broad church. You've got a small group of large firms that may feel that we're acting in a manner that's restrictive, but you've got a large group who are saying, thank you for doing this for us, and thank you for opening the markets. On the processes themselves, we'll be the first to admit that they are not ideal. I would correct Busi, though, and we have discussed this before. The problem is the perception of one merger that took 3 years becomes the anecdote for the whole system, and it's not correct from that perspective. And we publish our statistics, but mergers that raise no competition issues are done in 20 days. And in fact, even the large mergers, our average is less than 6 months. Severely complex ones do raise issues, but we should be better at that. And we're looking at proposals to raise thresholds, lighten the load, ensure that ones that are not raising issues get moved quickly. So we are listening in that sense, but it is a problem if we take 3 years. We shouldn't be taking 3 years. The other big problem in this process is that, and I talked earlier about the separation of the Commission from the tribunal. The Commission can investigate in under 6 months, but if it's large, it moves to the tribunal. And to be frank, the tribunal's been understaffed, under-resourced, and that's what often causes some delays. But at the tribunal stage, others can intervene. And in fact, if you look at the cases where there have been long delays, it's because other businesses have intervened in the process and slowed it down. Now, you can look at that. Some of these businesses have genuine concerns, but we also see the abuse of competition law, where businesses use intervention in order to stifle rivals, hinder their deals. And that's a difficult problem to solve. And we discussed this at our last annual conference, because you want due administrative process, just processes, people to be heard, but you also need to move this along. And so it's a problem we need to solve, because even for some of the law firms, there can't be a commitment to say, let's collectively agree to how we can streamline this process, because their clients' interest may in fact be to delay these processes. In our latest targets, we've also made commitments that it's not just an average on 120 days, it's the maximum. And so we've taken some of these on board and we have to fix. And I would agree on investigations too. They take too long, we need to move faster. And they take too long because we need the competition now. If someone's abusing their position and putting up barriers, we need to get rid of that. So we're also discussing internally, are there ways to speed up that, to get settlements to move the country forward? But, so I think these are important debates, and it's important that we hear these problems. But I think sometimes, as I said, we need to separate the two issues. And I'm not hearing that competition policy is the issue, it's implementation.
It's implementation.